Hey, sports cards fans, Ray from Philly here, and welcome. It is January 19th, and it's that time of year again, football time, and this is the third annual Football Card Hall of Fame. The first year was back in January 2023. Last year was the second year. 2024 was a huge success. It's growing every year. Thrilled, and I hope that you guys will participate this year. It's been a huge success and a lot of fun. But without further ado, I'm going to bring in the two committee members and the host of the Football Card Hall of Fame for the third year in a row. And let's bring them on here. And we have Bart of Bart's Cards and Scott of Sconnie Tradition. Welcome, guys. How are you guys doing today?
Hey, Ray. Hey, Scott. What's going on?
Just freezing up here in Wisconsin. Other than that, it's great. It's football season and excited to get into this year's list.
Yeah, the first 2 years, it's been growing little by little each year. It's been a lot of fun, and I appreciate you guys hosting this. I couldn't think of two better people 2 years ago in the entire YouTube community that their knowledge of football cards is better than you guys. You guys are the football guru guys, in my opinion. So I really appreciate it. So I'm going to leave it to you guys now. I'm going to exit out of here. You guys go over the rules, regulations, and all your slides that you picked. Now, I didn't pick any cards. This is all Bart and Scott. This is their ballot. And so everybody, have fun with it. And, you guys can, now take over. I'm going to remove myself and have fun. So.
All right, well, welcome everybody. Third annual Sports Card Hall of Fame, hosted by the Sports Card Hall of Fame Network on YouTube. On behalf of me and Scott, we welcome you to our kind of release of the ballot for this year. We've let 20 cards in so far, and we're looking forward to letting a few more in. Voting goes live today, so you can click the link in the video below as you're watching this and vote along with us in the video or after watching. All right, 45 total cards will be on the ballot. 16 of those are new this year. We kick the bottom 5 out every year, but we had a tie last year, and so instead of airing in the side of the cards, we booted both out and kicked 6 out and brought in some new cards. Scott, you want to pick up with some of this?
Yep. And then this year as well, you can still vote up to 10 cards as previous years, but this year we're only going to allow 5 cards into the ballot or into the final winnings, if you will, to add to the Hall of Fame. And the reason we're doing that is just to football cards are a little different than baseball in that baseball has so much more depth, goes over like 100 plus years of notable cards, so and players and everything like that. So we just thought this was a good idea to increase, to allow this to prolong a little longer into the future. So 5 cards is what it's going to be this year, those that get in.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't quite have the depth of years or print runs, different set issues, food issues of rarity that you're chasing for Hall of Famers, those types of things. They do come along, but not nearly the volume of baseball. So we got to make sure that we're doing the right thing and not watering down the Hall of Fame here. All right, as you can see on the slide, 29 cards kept from last year's ballot. So they weren't booted off. They got enough votes to maintain, but they didn't get enough votes to stick around. All right, so you should see those ballots. They should be no surprises to you. These are pretty significant cards in the hobby. Here's who got in. Those 10, very well deserving. Some fantastic cards here. Those first 2 years of Hall of Fame ballots, it was almost like, hey, should we just let, the first 20 in on the first year just to, because these are guarantees type of cards. But it was a lot of fun going through the voting with these. All right, here's your ballot. Scott, I'll let you start it off.
Sure. So this is the 1888 N162 Goodwin Champions Harry Beecher card. I believe this was a card we added last year to the ballot. One we may have overlooked slightly the first year we did this. And, this has kind of the notoriety of being kind of the first real football card, if you will. So you can see, look at the shape of the football there. You can tell this is an old card. It's kind of where football got its roots. So this is not a card that comes up a ton. It's pretty scarce out there in the world, and when it does come up, it does sell for several $1,000s. Even like a PSA 1 or an SGC 1 would sell for that. So a card that you don't see a whole lot, but a card that we felt that was important enough to the hobby that it should be on the ballot.
Absolutely. We do want to educate through this ballot, so putting those cards out in front of you and seeing what an old pigskin actually looked like being held by somebody is pretty cool. I'll give you the second one too, since we got a Packers.
All right, yeah, this is the 35 Chickle Clark Hinkle. Just an amazing card. This is a 36 card set that came out in 1935. It kind of resembles some of the baseball sets of the times, like Diamond Stars. It's got that Art Deco kind of look to it. And, the Nagurski, I believe, made it in the first year. And I think, I don't remember if the Newt Rockne made it in last year or if that was the Sport Kings Newt Rockne. But this card is just a classic card. He's a Hall of Famer, football Hall of Famer for the Packers. And it's one of those Hall of Fame cards that's tough to get because it is pretty scarce out there, especially in high grade. So it definitely makes the ballot again this year.
Absolutely. All right, Sid Luckman. So that 35 was our first football nationally issued set and our only one, selectively football for pre-war. So we immediately jumped to post-war 1948 Leaf. But anybody that collects any sports knows 48 Leaf and the pop of the colors and everything. Here's one of those examples, and you'll see a couple more. But the Sig Luckman from the Chicago Bears, I guess the last and one and only, great Chicago Bears quarterback, but an icon in the hobby as well as in the game itself. So good to see this one this year, and he should be getting in pretty soon. Another, and love the 48 Leafs with not just the color but those nicknames down below. So Bobby the Blonde Bomber Lane, Lions didn't work out too well yesterday, but they've got some pretty cool lore and history to them, and Bobby Lane is the foundation of that for sure.
This is the 48 Leaf Chuck Bednarik. This is a card I actually picked up this past year, which was very exciting because you do not see this card very often, especially centered. This card typically is like just to where it was on the sheet. It was always off-centered. So I was able to find a low-grade copy centered. And I believe this is a short print as well. So as far as Philadelphia collectors go, this is probably one of their, creme de la creme kind of cards that they would want in their collection. I believe, was it last year that the Sammy Baugh 48 Leaf made it in?
Yep.
And you just saw 3 more. So it's just definitely one of those iconic sets. So there's definitely a few examples we put up from that set that still have a chance to make it in this year.
Gotta love Concrete Charlie. Old Crazy Legs. We get into 1950 Bowman, a smaller issued print run or actual size of the card, but nice colored depictions. Not a whole lot of detail on the front there, just a classic action shot. And Crazy Legs, known for the way he ran, but while the Rams fan base isn't too big these days, they were a formidable team in the early days, and Crazy Legs was at the bottom of that. My man, Yelberton Abraham Tittle, 1950 Bowman there. Pictured in a Colts jersey when they wore green back in the day. He played for a very short period of time with them before doing most of his time with the 49ers. I'm not a huge fan of horizontal cards, but this one's one of the ones I make an allowance for on display and things like that. Love this card. Just one of the big, there's several of them, but one of the big pioneers for, moving the game along through the passing game. Had 7 touchdowns in a game early in his career, which was absolutely unheard of back then. won an MVP, did well with the Giants later. So big time player. And then 1950 Bowman, just an iconic set for us.
Here's kind of a unique set. The 1950 Topps Felt Backs Joe Paterno. These cards are actually very tiny if you see them in person.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're only a couple, like maybe 2.5 inches high. I don't know the exact measurements on it, but they're not very big. The condition did not hold very well from these cards, but it is considered Joe Paterno's really only card. I guess would be considered his rookie card. So it is part of the top 250 cards in the hobby set as well, I do believe.
It is. And it's good to see some non-mainstream issues here. We do like to educate through this process and expose folks to a smattering of cards, not just the mainstream mainline things. So this is one of those. It's pretty cool. Doak Walker, another 1950 Bowman. And of course, we're going in chronological order here if you're catching the pattern on the ballot there. A very iconic person of the day, Heisman Trophy winner. Went to the Lions here, and in my opinion, probably one of the more overrated Hall of Famers that we have in the game. But it's a little tough to make that assessment for me. Obviously, I didn't get to watch him play, and they played much fewer games, and the statistics were far different from what we have now. But just a really popular card for its time. And just an icon on the cardboard.
Yep. And number one card in the set as well. So presents some condition issues. So that's this is a top 250 card in the hobby as well. Part of the PSA set registry. And the number one running back in college football every year does get the Doak Walker Award. So his name has lived on.
Yeah, and that's a great point too. With these early issue runs, it was set building, right? We didn't have inserts and variations and all those things. So set building was the big key. And so you'll see first cards and last cards get a lot more popularity and notoriety based on where they were on print sheets and how they were cut, and then how they were held with rubber bands or in tins or shoe boxes of the time. They got damaged easily and stuff. So pursuing those cards and then pursuing well-conditioned ones brought the lore and the luster to the card itself.
Exactly.
Norm Van Brocklin, well, he had to, Crazy Legs Hirsch had to receive the ball from somebody. And Norm Van Brocklin was one of the big arms of the day. A lot of those guys are well known, but I want to say he was kind of like the Brett Favre of the day, just an absolute gunslinger. And I love 51. I'm not as big a fan on the 50s because they're smaller. But the boldness of colors as you start getting into 51 and 52 are tremendous. And this is a great one there. Love that helmet, the two colors of the leather there. You just can't beat it. So excited to see this one on the ballot for sure.
Here we have another 51. That's the 51 Bowman Tom Landry rookie card. Very popular card from the time. Yeah, I agree with you, Bart. The 50 through 52 Bowman in general just makes some beautiful cards. And 50 Bowman is my favorite set. I just like the simplicity of it with the no name on the front. For some reason, I just like that. It just appeals to me. Especially like that Tittle, just a beautiful card with the pink sky in the background. But any one of these you can't go wrong with. So Tom Landry, of course, he's with the Giants here, but would also go on to coach as well later on and become very popular there. So definitely a card that's continuing from last year's ballot onto this year.
Yeah, and a fantastic defensive back for his day for sure. And it always helps being in a big media market like New York for some popularity. But that's where I differ on the cards. I love 51 because it starts the showing of the old school logos and the names and things. And to me, those are aspects of cards that I really significantly look for, as long as it doesn't detract from the picture itself. So that's part of what I like about these cards, and hopefully that garners some luster in the eyes of some voters, one way or the other, to see those vintage logos of their teams on cards and things like that. I love it. So 51 Landry is one of those examples.
There's another one, the 52 Bowman Frank Gifford. We're getting into 52s now, and of course there's both varieties. You have the large and the small when it comes to 52 Bowman. The larges usually sell for a little more sought after. Not all the time. Sometimes there's some funky things with the population reports that make the smalls actually a little more sought after. But Frank Gifford obviously would go on to have an interesting career in broadcasting as well, but was a great player in his day. And it's a card I'm actually looking to pick up. I picked up the Bednarik last year, and this, I believe, Gifford was the guy that he knocked out for like a year and a half with one of his hits. So I wanted to get the other part of that big play, if you will. But this is an iconic card right here.
Yeah, absolutely. Love the cloud sky in the background there. And then as you'll notice, it doesn't reference a professional team. It references a college team. A good number of those cards do that for their rookies. And so you see some, if you haven't exposed yourself too much to that set, you'll see a lot of colors of teams that you're a little confused on the patterns or something. And if you read the label a little detailed, you'll see that it's coming from, University of Minnesota or something to that effect, as opposed to a professional team, which is kind of neat now. Makes it a little tougher if you're collecting commons on, though. Paying high dollar for teammates of yours, or you're a fan of that team or something, and it's some podunk university instead of your team. But pretty cool. And small is more often centered, which has some level of popularity there, but the large, if you see them next to each other, pretty significant size disparity. And if you get a nice large one, there's no comparison to the small. 54 George Blanda. 53 was a tiny set, so you're not going to see too many cards of popularity and notoriety in there. But 54, we get another large set coming out. A little bit more straightforward set as far as presentation and things like that. But George Blanda kind of carries it as far as rookies go. I love the dancing bear on that, but George Blanda, a very popular player of his day, bounced around some teams here and there, but basically a Hall of Fame quarterback and a Hall of Fame kicker punter at the same time. Played for 26 years, retired with the all-time scoring record, which he held for a long time. So very well-known player, and just a nice clean look on a card here.
Okay, this is the 1955 Topps All-American Don Hudson. This is a pretty sought-after card in the hobby, I would say. Many think that Don Hudson is, a top 2-3 receiver of all time for sure. Some people would argue number one based on the era that he played in. He certainly was, for the first 50 years of football, the best receiver. And at the time, he was just so far ahead of everybody as far as statistics go in receiving. It was ridiculous. I think he was called like the Babe Ruth of football around that time, just because his Babe Ruth's home run numbers at the time and how far ahead he was mimicked how far Hudson was in receiving yards. So you can see Hudson here. This one has the college logos as well, so you can see like the Crimson Tide little wave there on the upper left-hand corner of the card. The Jim Thorpe, I believe, from this set already made it in one of the first 2 years. So this would be another option for everybody. It's really a cool set, the 55 Topps All-American.
Yeah, fantastic set. Probably to me, the most aesthetic with all the different elements going on. Just love it. That old roll tide on that one is pretty awesome as well. And I'm not even an Alabama fan, but just a great card. And I have to foot stomp what you said. He was so far beyond everybody in statistics that you couldn't understand and comprehend comparatively. So it's a tough comparison these days for sure. 4 Horsemen. As the NFL was still kind of getting its way in the early days, right? College was very popular. And Notre Dame was that for a good bit of the 20s, 30s, into the 40s. And of that lore is the 4 Horsemen. And so kind of neat, it wasn't a straight up player that was depicted. I don't know of any other color cards like this, especially before this, that depicted, kind of the team concept here. And you've got the bold colors of Notre Dame Fighting Irish. You've already seen some Newt Rockneys on the ballots over the previous years and getting in. But he had to coach somebody, and those 4 Horsemen are pretty cool. Great set, cool logo there on the top left-hand corner. and just the story of football can't be told without a little bit of Notre Dame and a little bit of the Four Horsemen here.
Yeah, just love the aesthetics of these cards and the logos. They really just make it for me. Here we have another Packers player, the 57 tops, Paul Hornung. I believe his cohort in the set, Bart Starr, made it in on the first ballot. Hornung was not only a great player for the Packers, he was a great player in college as well, winning the Heisman. He was kind of a do-it-all player when he came out. Like, he could kick, he could play quarterback, he could run, and they had trouble kind of figuring out how to use him exactly. But Lombardi said he was going to be his running back, and the rest is history. So I think he led he had the record, I think, for the longest time in points in a season, if I recall. I think it was it LT, LaDainian Tomlinson, that ended up breaking that at some point. I'm trying to recall, but he obviously was he was nicknamed the Golden Boy, and and was quite a player for the Packers for many, many years.
Yeah, he literally has a golden aura in the photo.
Yeah.
LaDainian Tomlinson's 31 touchdowns will break some scoring records for sure, but he had this one for a long, long time. I love this card. 57 is a fantastic issue as well. It's almost, Hornung would probably be the biggest player in a couple years of issues. He just so happened to fall into 57, and there's some monsters in there with him, but a fantastic card and definitely worthy of an eventual entry into the Hall of Fame. Scott nominated this one, so I'll let him pop it in there.
Yeah, this is the 57 tops Dick Night Train Lane card, which has to be one of the best nicknames
Absolutely.
of any player. But I think a theme you're going to find on this year's list with some of the cards we added is that we're trying to give the defensive players a little more love. And I think Dick Night Train Lane is one of the first in a string of players that we've added to the list this year. Just again, 57 is so cool. You get the portrait on one end, you get the action shot on the other, and it's one of my favorite sets for being a horizontal card. I think so. He was a great defensive player.
Yeah, a truly iconic set. You can spot this thing 100 yards away and know it's from 57 tops, with that bold yellow on one of the sides. Night Train Lane, obviously depicted here on the Cardinals, but a Hall of Fame great for the Lions. Still holds the record for most interceptions in the season with 14, which is even more wild because they played much fewer games back then. Just do not throw to that guy because he's taking it from you. The coach, Mike Ditka, kind of brought up back into the fold a little bit as far as this year and what Brock Bowers did, because Brock Bowers started breaking some records that people didn't realize had still been standing since Mike Ditka was playing years and years ago with a different style offense and much less throwing, all the things and less games. But it took until now until some of these records to fall. So Mike Ditka was a fantastic, all-pro tight end for Mike for the Bears. And obviously he led to coach. And so folks of my age, me and Sconnie, I saw him as a head coach in the NFL when we came up, but he was a much bigger deal before that as well, and played for the Cowboys too.
And here's the 62 tops Ernie Davis, which I believe we added onto the list last year. And again, this one and the last one, the caveat with these 62s is they are so hard condition-wise. So you can see the black borders, very hard to find in high grade. That definitely gives these particular cards a little more allure. Again, you have a portrait of the player, and then you've got the action shot as well in the black and white. So kind of a really unique set, a unique card. Ernie Davis played through for Syracuse and came up, and it was supposed to be the next Jim Brown, basically. But he had some health issues and never quite transpired in the NFL like you would have hoped. But was an outstanding running back, and this is a card that people still are sought after. It's a sought after card, basically, that people still want in their collections, even though he never had that NFL career.
Yeah, his is one of the important stories of the game. Didn't quite, end up in all the accolades and things like that because of illness, but still a good story for the game, and something we remember with this card. We got Fran Tarkenton. I'm sure there were some scrambling quarterbacks just because there were some defensive monsters chasing him around back in the day. But he was kind of one of those first ones known for being elusive, but still a gunner. He was one of those elusive ones that bought time, scrambled some yards here and there, but bought a lot of time to sling the ball down the field as well. Love that bold purple on this one. Again, 62 design, like Sconnie said, with those black borders. Huge change up in how they were making cards at the time, and another horizontal issue. Pretty cool with the different elements here and the black and white photo and that color solo shot. Well known in his day. Would be more well known, but the Vikings, for all their success, could not make it happen in the Super Bowl in the 70s, so it didn't quite work out.
All right, so this is a card that is back on the list after, I believe, got knocked out the first go around, but it's still an iconic card. I mean, Lance Ellsworth was a stud wide receiver for that era, and I'm glad to see this card back on. This card has a chance to make it in the next couple of years. It's going to be tough now that we're down to 5 cards per year. But yeah, the Lance Ellsworth was a stud. His nickname was, I believe, Bambi at the time. And this card's pretty sought after. It goes for this one and the Len Dawson, which I'm sure we're going to be talking about shortly here. Does not go for cheap amounts of money.
Yeah, absolutely. I picked this one up this year. Very happy to have it added to my collection. And as you alluded to there on the ballot, we do boot cards off for the bottom vote getters each year. But so this one was off the ballot after the first year. And, that's a pretty stacked ballot because we hadn't let anybody in yet. But as we're going through for editions of the ballot this year, we were very hard pressed to select cards that had never been on the ballot over some of these cards that got kicked off that first year. So 4 of those 5 that got kicked off the first year's ballot were re-entered onto the ballot this year just because, they cannot be ignored. And it would violate the integrity of this ballot if we didn't have some of these cards back on there. And there you said, Len Dawson, even if you did get to see him play, I mean, some of his iconic photos are, still well known and worthy.
The cigarette in the Fresca, right?
Absolutely. Sitting in a locker room smoking a cig. But, AFL doesn't quite get the love it should, and understandably so. The NFL was a little bit bigger, but they were a pretty heavy competitor there for a while, and they were stealing draft picks and all the things in the 60s before the merger. And Len Dawson and the Chiefs were basically the big team of that time for the most part. And then he had the personality to go with it. Beautiful cards, a little tough to get centered, but if you can find them without the print dots and, an early print run, before they needed an ink cartridge change or something, you get that bold color out of that. They look beautiful. Absolutely.
This is another one of my favorite sets, actually, the 63 tops. These sets kind of remind me like the first, like if you're talking in a modern card sense, like the first color matches. So like be like a Bob Lilly Prism color match here.
Mm-hmm.
So Bob Lilly was a stud for the Cowboys back in the day. I think his nickname was actually Mr. Cowboy or something in that order. He was really their first big player, big pick that they made. And the card is ridiculous to find centered. You can see they get off centered quite easily, and also shows wear really easily. So you have an iconic player of an iconic franchise here. You have the issues with condition, and you have the difficulty in centering, and that makes this card definitely worthy to be on the list.
Yeah, and at the time, the Cowboys were a very new team. I think they came around in probably around 61-ish or something like that. And so he's your first big Cowboy. Don Meredith didn't quite make it out, and as a quarterback. But Bob Lilly was there for a decade plus doing it at all-pro level, and so their first big Hall of Famer and all the things.
This is one of my favorite cards of all time, and just an iconic card. You got Ray Nitschke here. I think he's like 28 years old in this card, which is hard to believe, but but it's true. Players had some rough upbringings back then, and Ray Nitschke definitely looks like a football player on this card. Again, kind of another like pseudo color match here going on, which is kind of fun. And it's a big reason I like these sets. They're just very aesthetically pleasing for me. Again, same thing with centering issues and condition issues. But Ray Nitschke is probably like the heart and soul of those '60s Packer teams, for sure. So an iconic card of a player over an iconic period of time during the Lombardi years.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved growing up watching him on NFL films, talking and stuff like that too. And yeah, he looked, 47 with two ex-wives in this photo and stuff. It'd be 28. It's just wild, but different times for sure. OJ, Orenthal James Simpson. Obviously, we all know him as Heisman Trophy winner, 2,000-yard running back for the Bills back in 14-game seasons. Took Saquon 16 games just to barely, pass him by about 2 yards or something. So this year, a tremendous runner in his day, super popular. Bills weren't great at the time, so he was all they had going. It would have really been nice to see how well he would have done with, a little bit better of an offense or overall team or something. You might have seen him a little farther into the playoffs. He'd have been more well known. Obviously, gained a fair level of notoriety. We'll leave it at that after his playing career. But what he impacted the game with, he just can't be denied. And later played in the 49ers, so I got a couple of really nice 49ers cards of his as well. So tremendous impact on the hobby and a great card. 70s was a bit of a change up here with that frame. And, you can see the pink kind of, I don't know what you call that, sash or ribbon here. A little bit interesting, but kind of neat. And his face is just iconic. So, you can spot him a mile away. That power draw on OJ as well.
And this is the 71 tops. Mean Joe Green, another very condition sensitive set. And this card is plagued with centering issues as well. It's almost impossible to find this one exactly centered. I've been looking for one myself for a couple of years, and they're just very hard to find. We have another defensive stalwart here, Mean Joe Green from the Steelers. The Steelers of that time period were a very iconic football team, and this would be Joe Green's rookie card. And what can you say? I think it's a great looking card. Look at that portrait of Mean Joe Green.
Yeah, you can't be the leader of the Steel Curtain and not be pretty popular yourself and have a sought after rookie for sure. Very tough set. 71 tops needs to be very thankful that players like Mean Joe Green and Terry Bradshaw had rookie cards in it. It's not the most aesthetic set. It's not color matching. It's just random, that red, blue, or all red. Not, the best backgrounds and stuff like that. But a very big change up, so significant. But if you collect 70s cards, they were exploring with a lot of different styles and colors back then. So it got a little interesting. But we can't have the hobby we have without 71 tops for sure. All right, jumping a little bit because we've gotten some folks in the mid 70s already in the Hall of Fame. But 77 Steve Largent. I know him well, mostly he was the one that Jerry Rice was chasing all his records until he passed them for quite some time. Seahawks were a brand new team, I think, in '76. So kind of their first, big star of the day was Steve Largent, and put up some astronomical numbers of his own for his day. 100 receiving touchdowns before that was a thing. And as the game was evolving into passing and stuff, he was putting up numbers along with it. So he was kind of one of those first receivers to be on their receiving end, pun intended, I guess, of that. 77 is a pretty cool set as far as that design and everything. Been a little bit cooler if he had a decal of some sort on his helmet here. But that's the Seahawks of the day. And you can't tell the story of the game without Steve Largent.
If I recall, Largent wasn't like a super imposing player either necessarily, but yet he just found a way to carve out, tons of yards and touchdowns over the years, quietly, in the Pacific Northwest over a long period of time.
Yeah, if you threw it near him, he was catching it, and he had a knack for the yards after the catch. But he was just going to catch everything, whether he was falling down backwards behind his back, he was going to catch that ball.
And here's one that we added, I believe, to the list this year.
Yeah.
I don't think it says new edition, but it is new to the list. Trust us. This is the 78 Tops Tony Dorsett. Had an interesting NFL career with the Cowboys, and I think he played for a couple other teams as well, or at least one other team.
Yeah, the Broncos at the end there.
Yeah. But he also had his college notoriety as well. Was a great college player, and so really the combination of college and pros kind of is what made us put this card on the list this year. For those 70s collectors, I know this is still a pretty popular card.
Yeah, absolutely. 79 Earl Campbell, an absolute monster. I think every running back is got to be thankful that he didn't have a longer playing career and just set every record so far you couldn't get to it type of thing. But if you have not seen highlights of this guy playing football, you absolutely need to YouTube that. He would put his helmet into the person's chest, knock them back 5 yards, and keep running over them. Phenomenal football player, Heisman Trophy winner for Texas Longhorns, and then stayed local with the Oilers and was just an absolute beast. Not a whole lot of pomp and circumstance on the card itself here, with no numbers, no logos on his jersey or anything else. But
it's very nondescript. I'm actually kind of sad it does not include Earl Campbell's thighs on the card.
It
really should.
Enormous. You were not tackling one of those things because you couldn't wrap one up, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
I don't know the whole story. I probably should look it up further, but I believe he, probably had some issues along with the NFLPA and licensing and stuff. So he is not in many issues, even though he played for a little bit longer. And so 79 is not just his big card, but it's one of the very few that he has. My man, Ronnie Lott. 82 Tops is probably my favorite set there is anyway. So it's pretty awesome that there's a Hall of Fame rookie in there. I love everything about this set itself. The color, it's kind of a color match for us as well with that red border into him. And if this guy got a part of a finger cut off so he could play in the game and not come out, like just that ridiculous old school football. He started out as a cornerback because he had some speed, put a little size on him, made the pads even bigger, and then played safety for the predominance of his career, which everybody remembers him for. But he would just lay the boom on everybody. Still put up the numbers, so lots of tackles, well over 50 interceptions in his career. Finished out with the Raiders and then a little stint with the Jets, but 82 Tops, fantastic set, and then Ronnie Lott, just an all-time defensive great for the game.
Couldn't agree more.
Speaking of all-time defensive greats,
yeah, what if that? Yeah, 82 Tops is an amazing set. You also have like the Anthony Munoz in that set, and there's some others as well. But you have LT and Ronnie Lott in the same set. I mean, that's a hell of a defense right there to get started with. I think LT's probably he might be the best defensive player of all time. I don't know. Like I have a hard time arguing anybody else.
Yeah.
He's certainly top 2 or top 3, something like that for sure. But what a beast this guy was! Just a physical specimen, and did it for a long period of time. And this is a card I'm personally looking to re-add to my collection this year. I had sold it one during the pandemic when the prices got crazy. But I would love to re-add this card. It's I think a necessary card in any football collection. And as I'm a defensive guy myself, and this is a must-have for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I could not argue somebody stronger for the greatest defensive player of all time. We can leave the arguments up to semantics, but he would still always be in the conversation, and you couldn't defeat him in that conversation for sure. Just an absolute monster. The ferocity with which he approached the game. I mean, he would scare everybody on the offensive side of the ball. Came in, guns blazing, lots of sacks, pick sixes, rookie of the year, all the things, all pro every year. Just absolute monster, and led the Giants to a couple championships there in the 80s as well. John Elway, these 84 couple cards here, he should be getting in pretty soon, I would think. Very popular player, especially on in his region of the United States as well, where they didn't have a whole lot of popular teams at the time. And then 84 tops is a very significant issue with design, the tilt there, all the logos. It's just a great looking card, great issue. A player that put up significant numbers, didn't do as well early in the career, lost some big games, but finished out strong with two Super Bowl victories, and then was a successful executive as well. So big time player, big time card.
Yeah, I think his cohort Dan Marino made it in last year, right? The 84 tops.
Yeah,
Marino. So
yeah, that was a big toss up. Which one was coming in first?
Yeah. We'll see how long it takes Elway to make it. Here's another one of my favorite cards. I mean, you got the USFL logo on top, the Memphis Showboats, the red, white, and blue all over this card. So if you're into those type of aesthetics, this is a card for you. This one's hard to find in high grade because of the backs. It's almost like a magenta color, and it just chips a lot, and it's also hard to find centered. But this is just, as far as portrait cards go, this is one of my favorites, just to get that side portrait view of Reggie. Along with Lawrence Taylor, I mean, these guys are probably top 3 defensive players of all time. Me personally, watching a player in person, this guy was the most physically dominant person I've ever seen play in person. Like from his elbow down, like his forearms were just something else, and the way he used leverage to throw linemen that are weighed more than him off to the side was something else. We haven't seen a player quite like him, I don't think. Of course, gone way too soon, passed away in 2003 at a young age. But yeah, Reggie White, one of my all-time favorite players, and I just love the aesthetics of this card personally. This is considered his rookie card, although it is with the Memphis Showboats.
Yeah, the Minister of Defense, and yeah, that's all I remember is he would just kind of bowl up an arm and get under a dude's shoulder and just move him out of the way and go.
The hump move.
It was ridiculous. He would just lift 300-pounders and just, all right, you're going that way now. Nice and simple. Fantastic card. Condition sensitive as well, like Sconnie said, but also these were issued in, if you're a baseball guy, those old Topps traded sets, they came in little boxes like that. And so, they got jostled around more than they would be if they were in a pack or something like that. All right. Mentioned a couple times, always looking to educate and expose our voters here at the Sports Card Hall of Fame Network on the hobby itself. There is a lot of popularity with Santa Claus cards. They do a fair number of issues each year now, and this is the first one that it came out. So 89 Pro Set was 89 is the first kind of big burgeoning year of football cards and different sets. You had more than one choice. Didn't happen like that before then. And so Pro Set also was very inventive in putting promos and little, I don't know if chase cards, so to speak, random things that they would have. They had cards with, a CEO on there or something like that. They're super rare, but different nuanced things. And one of those promos was Santa Claus. Got real popular. The 90 Pro Set is also pretty popular. But this is the one that kind of started it all. And I like the photo itself. He's holding a card of himself that we're looking at the same time. Joe Montana magazine sitting there in front of him. You got a couple of elves looking in the window. And you'll see some plays on variations of these in subsequent years based on this one. So this one is kind of iconic, and it's paved a little bit of the way of some differences and nuances in cards over the coming years. So pretty cool. And 'tis the season, we're a little after it, but I always like to see these cards in higher volume during that time of the year as well.
Here's a new one to the list this year, the 89 score Deion Sanders. Obviously, that 89 score set is completely loaded with rookie cards. There's so many from that set. It really is a pretty iconic semi-modern set. And Deion is, he's relevant today. He's, the coach for Colorado Buffaloes. He may end up in the NFL at some point. We just don't know, but he's still relevant today. Big personality, was just a stud corner at that time for the Falcons, and then would play for a few other teams, including the 49ers and the Cowboys. I don't remember if he played anywhere else, but the guy was
Ravens.
Ravens. Yeah.
He played
for a few teams now that I think of it.
Mm-hmm.
But this is his first appearance on the ballot, and was just a stud shutdown corner. Flashy.
Yeah. When we were looking to make additions to the ballot here, 89 score will always kind of be in our mind. And with his recent popularity and things, this card has grown in popularity. And so we picked this one over adding Troy Aikman to this set. But if you stick with us over the coming years, you're going to see 89 scores pop up here and there. Because like Sconnie said, there's a whole lot of rookies in this set. Big set for football. Speaking of which, there was a supplemental release issued with 89 score, and perhaps some of the baseball folks, or those that collect a little bit more, haven't seen this before. They know the 90 score one where it's white and horizontal, and he's holding the bat over his back shoulders. But there was a football issue of similar, and it came out in 89 score supplemental. Pretty cool card. A little tough to get centered and things like that because those supplemental sets came out in little boxes as well. And so, the edges and things on top of centering were a bit of a struggle. But Bo knows he's super popular back in the day, just an absolute monster. His feats of athleticism still, strain your eye. Like, does that really just happen? How is he doing that to other grown adults and stuff? Love Bo Jackson, and a pretty cool card.
And star of Tecmo Super Bowl, the video game.
Oh man, could not mess with him in Tecmo Super Bowl.
Here's the 1990 score supplemental Emmitt Smith rookie card. Obviously, one of the best running backs of all time, and we had to include him on this list. He is returning from last year's list, I believe. He's not a new card. Certainly would be deserving for consideration into the Hall of Fame. Was the Cowboys stud running back for many, many years behind that great offensive line. Those teams were just stacked, the 90s Cowboys, and Emmitt was a big part of that.
Yeah, and another supplemental set came in a small box adjacent to the you did have full factory sets of 90 score, but you had the packs as well. But the supplemental just came in a little box. So very tough. Quality control wasn't good on these, so they are tough to, especially that top bottom border, tough to get centered, and then they chipped a lot. Love me some 90 score. This is the set that got me started on collecting. The boldness of colors, and not always a color match, but he gets a huge benefit of a color match on this one for sure. Good looking card.
This is a card that's returning to the list. Was knocked off the ballot the first time around, but it's the Brett Favre rookie card. And this is the card that his name is spelled wrong. It's spelled F-A-R-V-E, and that's kind of one of the first error cards that I kind of remember growing up that I was hunting for. You can see him with the Falcons on this card. Just Favre, he's kind of fallen a little out of favor lately with something, been in the news for certain reasons, but he's still extremely popular amongst Packer fans, and he's really up there on a lot of the NFL passing lists still, and certainly is deserving to be back on this list.
Yeah, absolutely, and back-to-back MVPs in the 90s there, so big time gunslinger. Not as well known in his Southern Miss uniform there, but most of his 91 issues are like that, and that's why his 92s are pretty popular as well. Ray Lewis, 96 Bowman's Best. Another all-time great on defense. I am a big fan of Ray Lewis, big fan of this card itself. 96 Bowman's Best is, one of those solidifying sets in basically the chrome, display, the chrome makeup of the card itself. Not the first time it happened, but 96 Bowman Best was a high-end product where all of the cards were like that now. And Ray Lewis, while not quite immediately upon issue, but within a few years, really solidified 96 Bowman's Best as a significant issue.
He looks pretty imposing on that card.
Yeah, he was not small, and then I love those old pads on the shoulders. If I was playing football back then, I'd have had some ridiculous pads as well. I love those. 98 SP Authentic Randy Moss. These are numbered, and so kind of a high-end, well, definitely a high-end set, but to have them numbered was a bit new for sure, especially for standard issue, the base rookie cards. They also came in die cuts, numbered to 500. A little less known, but Randy Moss, we talked about Don Hudson earlier, but him, Hudson, and Jerry Rice to me are my top three for wide receivers. And then there's kind of all others, and there's some significant guys out there that I'm a big fan of, but there's still kind of all others. But Randy Moss, we still talk about it to this day. You got Moss, it's on TV. His athleticism to just high point the ball and the numbers that he put up was just such crazy significance. The hype that it came out of Marshall with, which is a pretty big deal for a small team, all of those things. And then a great set, beautiful issue. So looking forward to getting him at some point.
And here's another one, the Future Watch Peyton Manning. Again, these are very condition sensitive cards. Lots of chipping on the sides and corners, kind of hard to find in high grade. Charles Woodson's another big one from this set as well. Amon Green is in this set. So a couple of big time players in this set. And like Bart mentioned, the serial numbering was kind of unique for the time. And these cards have kind of withstood the test of time. So a lot of great names from that year. And the Sheriff Peyton Manning played many years, was a great quarterback, really just took the game to a different level analytically. And he was kind of maybe the first that I can recall anyways of people that just took the game apart so analytically. Yeah. And then there was some other players that would kind of follow in his footsteps from that. But man, he played for a long time and certainly is deserving to be on the list.
Absolutely. There isn't a quarterback I enjoyed watching more than Peyton Manning, with the amount of activity that he had going on before every play. Just a couple more here. Obviously, we're getting into the more modern cards here. So our first auto issue card here, Contenders Tom Brady. 2000 was not the first year of Contenders, but with the 98 issue being the start, and there was some popularity building, momentum building with the Randy Mosses and the Peytons in those issues. Once Tom Brady came along, and then in about 03, 04, when he all of a sudden was a big deal, and those kind of cards were still coming to market, all of a sudden Contenders was on the map, and it was never going to go anywhere after that because this was locked in. And then this card itself reached prices and popularity that we have just still haven't seen sometimes, but it probably took football collecting up a couple of levels into an asset class that wasn't even remotely on our horizon.
Yeah, this is a card that's beyond my means to obtain. It's a very pricey card, but yeah, Contenders is still relevant today. So it's really withstood the test of time, that set. And this is the very early birth of that set.
Yeah. A little tough on some of those earlier ones because the autos aren't quite as visible.
Right. And then this is the SP Authentic Tom Brady rookie card, which also makes the set. Brady's just such a player in football that you just need to have in this set. With all of his championships and whatnot. This is the card that is his like non-auto rookie that most of the set registries recognize as his rookie card. So that's why this card is popular. It's serial numbered. I like SP Authentic. It's kind of like a really clean looking card.
Yep.
I've always liked SP Authentic for that reason. Serial numbered, clean card. It has a lot of the factors for me in it. So I'm kind of curious to know which one of these Brady's eventually makes it in first.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, I love the set out of 1250, so even a little bit rarer than you saw the SP Authentics out of 2000. I made an offer on a PSA 1 of this card one time for like $4,000 or $5,000, and the person didn't even try to respond. These cards are that popular, a little ridiculous. PSA 1 would have been perfect for me because I'm not a big Brady fan. Even better if it had a bullet hole right through his head or something like that, but still slabbed up. But you just can't deny this card and its significance for sure. And then obviously Tom Brady to the game of football. He is the GOAT. I have to give him that. Doesn't mean I got to like him, but awesome card, awesome set issue. And, that year time frame, we were really starting to see the different echelons of marketing and cards, and SP Authentic was carrying that. New edition here. Just picked this one up in my collection not too long ago. Repicked it up, just like Scott did. you'd have been stupid not to sell a couple of things during the pandemic, as card prices were going through the roof, and you knew they were never going to sustain that, and they could fund future purchases for quite some time. So, 01 Chrome, and these were the rookies were base refractors at a 9.99. Beautiful cards, tough to find, well centered, and then you had to protect those surfaces on them, but phenomenal cards, and it's all tied together, right? Paul Hornung had that scoring record. LaDainian Tomlinson, when he scored 31 touchdowns in a season, that'll break quite a few records, and so he did. But not as popular of a guy, I guess. San Diego Chargers. He just doesn't get the love that he should, because he did it for a long time through college too. He's still the record holder, I believe. Probably somebody in a smaller school passed him by now, but had 406 yards at TCU rushing, which is just wild, and just did phenomenal numbers, ridiculous numbers, and was a good receiver in the NFL. So. Big time running back here all time.
Yeah. And last but not least, we have Aaron Rodgers. He's been in the news a little bit over the last couple of years. Whether it be the documentary on Netflix or his opinions, he's definitely relevant and an opinionated guy. He's been with the Jets the last couple of years,
yeah.
And they've had a myriad of issues, not just at the quarterback position, but Aaron Rodgers has been in the league a long time. So 2005, we're almost 20 years. We are 20 years now past 2005, so almost 20-year career, and has he holds a lot of Packer records. He's like I don't know if he's still number one all time in NFL passer rating or efficiency in some of those numbers. I'd have to look it up. And touchdown to interception ratio, I know he was very high in those.
Yeah, he's still on the touchdown interception ratio.
He still has some numbers. He's a very, as far as thrower of the football, he does some things that not a lot of other people have ever done over a long period of time. So this card, that's why it deserves to be on the list. The card itself does deal with some centering issues and condition issues. Very hard to find this card centered, even though it's 2005. It's a pretty modern card, but even these cards are hard to find centered. And they scratched a lot because of the Topps Chrome and the nature to them. So this is the last card on the list. This is one that fell off that very first ballot that makes a return to the list.
Yeah, left to right centering was awful on these. Very hard to find, and I think at some point they started giving out 10s even though they weren't perfectly centered, just because you got to have some 10s, and maybe at some point you say, all right, well that's how they issued them, so that's what the normal is the off center left to right. But Chrome had existed for a while. But building in popularity and substance, and 05 is kind of that middle point where it I don't want to say it peaked in popularity, but again it cemented itself in a significant way until and lasted till 2015 till the license went out. But and that makes this card kind of the center point in the complete top set Chrome run actually. But great card, great set. And to be able to, showcase an icon that we're still all want to pursue the card of, even though he's in gym shorts, that's pretty significant as well, right? But our last card, and again, we had to add this one back to the ballot because we just couldn't find a whole lot of cards that were more deserving to be on the ballot than this one.
All right, guys, that was a great list. I mean, some really cool new cards added to the set. The Santa Claus is very cool, by the way. I like that, the 89 Pro set. Very cool touch this year to add that set. But some awesome cards for sure added to there. So just again, just to let everybody know that you can start voting now if you like. And the voting ends on I think we have it as February 7th. So yeah, but get your vote out right now, and I'm going to see if I can real quick share the what the ballot looks like for everyone out there. And I guarantee all these are spelled correctly, unlike the slideshow. But yeah, this is just to show everybody. This is what the ballot looks like. Just go in there and click on what card you want. And try and keep it to no more than 10. You can vote up to 10 and only one time. But yeah, guys, great job. great list. I thoroughly enjoyed this. So once again, awesome.
Yeah, thanks for all the work, Ray, making it easy. All we had to do is show up. Right. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man, no problem.
Every time I see that ballot, I'm like, man, I got some cards I got to add.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's just so many iconic cards one after another, and there's already
Yeah.
20 that made it in. These are just the ones that still got to go yet.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
What are some of your guys' favorite that are left on there right now that you're kind of hoping gets in? To me, I'm hoping that the Elway gets in this year, and you're right. Lawrence Taylor is huge. I mean, that dude should get in.
Yeah. Elway, Taylor, Nitschke, Hornung will be right on the cusp just because he gets watered down by other 57s, but he should be up there type of thing.
I think
Right.
Hudson maybe before Horning.
Oh yeah, Hudson.
Yeah.
I just assume he's already in. I don't know how he didn't get.
Yeah,
I know.
that's a popular card even for non-Packer collectors. So that one has a good chance to get in this year, I think.
I picked that one up, and I knew I had to pick up a nice one. Like that's a rock solid part of the PC.
Yeah. I know Harry Beecher was the highest one that didn't get in last year.
Yeah, I think that one probably does make it, and it's just such a unique card compared to the rest of the cards. So I could see that one making it in this year or the next for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think so. Yeah. Anyway, but
And then we'll see, like if a Manning or a Brady, some of those more modern quarterbacks eventually make it in too. But these the first couple years we've done this, it's definitely been a little more vintage slanted as far as the voting goes. So we'll see when those.
And that's good.
And personally, I like that too because I think the older ones, in my opinion, deserve to get in first. I love the Chuck Bednarik card at Concrete Charlie. That's an awesome 48 Leafs, an awesome set.
Yeah,
can't go wrong. Yeah, but all right, yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Great job, everybody. Make sure you get out there and vote. This is for the Sports Card Hall of Fame Network. Thanks, Scott of Sconnie Tradition and Bart of Bart's Cards. The link for the ballot is down below. So make sure you go and check it out. Also, the link of all the cards that have been inducted already. So if you're asking a question like, oh, I saw you guys showed the list for last year. What about the year before? All the cards down below, you'll be able to see if you have any questions. So, working on a website too for this. I know the Baseball Card Hall of Fame has a website. There'll soon be a Football Card Hall of Fame website as well. So getting the word out there. So tell everybody, go out and vote. And again, guys, really appreciate great work, hard work you guys did. Great picks too as well.
Thanks, Ray.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you.